Alright, everybody. Hello. Welcome to Two Asian Blokes podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, anime, music, games, food, whatever we're feeling at the time. My name is Dan with a H, and with me, as always, my co-host Tavi.
What's up, everyone? How you doing? So next week is in Australia. It's back to school.
Yes. Today we're going to be talking about a few Asian films that are set in a school or around a school. We've watched a couple of them, and we're just going to be talking about how we feel about them, how they made us feel, I guess.
So they're kind of like less of a review. So there probably will be spoilers for some of these.
Yeah, they're pretty old films, guys.
They're not easily obtained, though. That's the thing.
If you want to avoid spoilers, I will put time codes in. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to jump around. And if you are watching on YouTube, leave a like if you want. Up to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we won't be reviewing them, like Tavi said. We're just going to be talking about what happens in them and the themes and some of the background information behind the production of the films. They are a couple of our favorites. And yeah, they all have child actors in them. Well, actually, most of them. So yeah, I guess a school as a backdrop for a story it's been used a lot, and for different genres, I guess. Like you can put any movie in a school, and it's a pretty good backdrop. You can do a horror movie in a school. You can do a romantic drama in a school. You can probably do an action thriller in a school. So yeah, it's a pretty versatile backdrop.
When you think about West versus East, what are your opinions on films set in schools?
When it comes to Eastern movies versus Western movies, well, give us some examples of some, let's say, Western films that are set in a school.
Well, my impression of just schools, films set in schools, when it comes to mostly, I guess, Hollywood and Western films, we've kind of grown up with the kind of screwball comedy, American Pie.
Yeah. The Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club. Breakfast Club is actually really good, though. American Pie is a classic. On rewatching it, it's not my favorite. I'm not a big fan of...
it might not hold up.
I don't think I was really ever a big fan of sex comedies, like Road Trip, Van Wilder. Van Wilder's not set in school, isn't it?
College, I think. And
there are some films that do tackle quite a dark subject matter in Hollywood or the Western movies. I think what comes to mind is Gus Van Sant's Elephant, which is about basically a school shooting. And Bowling for Columbine, which was Michael Moore's documentary about the Columbine massacres. And I saw a short film in the cinemas maybe 2 years ago. I think it was called DeKalb Elementary, and it was about a potential school shooting, but one of the school workers talks the shooter out of the act, so it's more of a positive sense. So yeah, I think there's definitely two sides in Western movies, but my impression is usually not very interesting high school screwball. There's High School Musical or whatever, and I feel like they don't tend to tackle those kind of themes as much. It's a bit more.
It's a bit of fun.
When I think of high school, it's oh mom, I'm gonna miss the prom. It's oh my god, we're gonna ask Emily out to the prom, and everything's about the prom.
Yeah.
And it's I don't give it it's just kind of a nothing thing to me because we didn't have prom in Australia.
We got the formal. Didn't you go to your high school formal?
I did actually. I did go to a formal. So that's wrong. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like for us, the formal was less of a deal. Maybe I might just be talking to myself, but
Yeah,
like,
it's a different
know.
kind of experience, I guess. Australian high school and specifically American high school. There seems to be a lot more like pranks going on in American schools, a lot more hijinks, like in Australian school.
Yeah,
just
I think so.
Just like the teacher keeping us back during lunchtime, and it's like
we do have Muck-Up Day, which was banned a few years ago.
Been banned
so
for
that
a
was
while.
that was probably the only interesting thing, like towards the end of high school.
Those listeners that aren't from Australia, Muck-Up Day is a day at the end of the year designated where kids that are graduating can just act the fool, I guess, just go around egging people, pulling pranks. In my year level, I think they filled like super soakers full of dog food water and were just going around spraying people. It's disgusting.
I think from my memory, we kind of like kicked and destroyed bins, and there's like a parade because you usually dress up as a famous movie character of sorts or something in pop culture. And when we were graduating, it was like the 300, so we did like Spartans versus Persians, and then on the parade we like had one of our friends who dressed up as Where's Wally. And then we just kicked the shit out of the bin. And because of, juvenile 18-year-old humor is like, oh man, this is the funniest shit ever, eh? Kind of thing,
It's an excuse for kids to do things that they think are funny, but are just annoying to outsiders. And it's supposed to be a day of like zero repercussions. But the problem with that is, kids will inevitably take it too far and people will get hurt. And then Muck-Up Day will get banned, which it eventually did. Probably for the better, to be honest.
Yeah, probably for the better. But I don't know, it was a bit of fun.
But yeah, you're right. There are those films that are just high school hijinks. But when American films do tackle slightly darker subject matter, I feel like they do it with a bit more fragility and a bit more taste than perhaps some of the films we're going to be looking at today. Perhaps because it is such a delicate, like I'm talking about violence in schools, specifically gun violence in schools. It's such a delicate matter in America, with a lot of people being directly affected by it, that I feel like, movies that choose to tackle that subject matter do have to tread quite carefully. Whereas Asian directors, they might not have the same background and same experience with gun violence, so it might be tackled in a different way. It might be addressed in a different way. And I guess you might be seeing some of that in the movies that we'll be examining today. But I mean, it's the same in Australia. Like, we don't have the same... I'm not saying that there isn't violence in our schools, but gun violence especially is not as much of a thing as it is in America.
I think there's obviously a varied amount of films set in high school. Like, there's a lot of like those romance films. There's a few like screwball comedies. I guess the first one would... that one that comes to mind would be like Sex is Zero, which came out.
I forgot about that film.
Yeah, in 2000.
That's not high school, is it? It's got to be college.
It's like high school into college, I think. I don't really remember. It was a long time ago.
Those actors are like 30.
They'd be like 40 now.
Yeah. I mean, at the time that they filmed it. They were
maybe.
But that is one of those like classic, screwball comedies. Gross out films, I guess, is what they call them.
I feel like there's a lot more like darker films in like Asian films that are set in high school. And I guess the first movie that we'll move on to is Confessions, which is directed by Tetsuya Nakashima, who is I think he's fairly popular in Japan. He's done quite a number of very like hyper stylized films. And prior to Confessions, he did a lot of like comedies, apparently. The two films that I've seen prior to this of his is Kamikaze Girls, which is kind of a wacky film. And then he did another film called Memories of Matsuko, which is kind of sad. It's a bit tragic. But they're both kind of way more positive than Confessions.
Did he do The World of Kanako?
Oh, yeah, he did that after, which is arguably a much bleaker film than this one.
But it's kind of got that same surrealism.
Yeah, for sure.
A thing in his films.
Yeah, he loves using slow-mo cameras because you'll see like high-speed cameras. You'll see a lot of like that slow-mo that gives that kind of hyper-realistic look.
How about you tell us, for those that haven't seen it, just briefly, what is Confessions about?
So Confessions is about a teacher whose daughter was murdered by two of her students, and she kind of seeks revenge against them. The film is told through confessions of like the people that are directly affected by the murder of her daughter. And I guess there's some notable cast members. Takako Matsu, who plays the teacher, she was fairly popular in the J-Idol.
Is that Moriguchi Sensei?
Yeah, Moriguchi. I haven't listened to any of her music, but I've seen some of her in some other films. She's worked with Shunji Iwai a couple of times. And the girl, Ai Hashimoto, which is like, I guess, kind of a supporting actor. She plays Mizuki. She's pretty popular. I think she became a model, and she's got kind of that. I think her look is like the cool look in the public, as one of my friends has told me.
She does look very trendy for a high school kid in that film.
Yeah. Her movies have been hit and miss. I've seen a few, but she stars in a movie called Little Forest, which is great. It's a great movie. But
she's okay in Confessions, right?
Yeah, she's pretty good.
I think the acting in general is superb, actually. Especially for like such a young cast.
It is. It's really, yeah. It's a shame because the Shuya, I guess he's kind of the protagonist, really. Like, or maybe not. It's weird.
Well, it's you get the viewpoint of different characters, right? So there isn't really a protagonist. I think the closest thing that comes to a protagonist is probably Moriguchi Sensei. But that said, she's not in that much of the film.
It's definitely an unconventional film, structure-wise. Like, it's very fragmented, but it does work really well. Like, I remember watching Confessions for the first time with not much of an expectation of anything, really. I kind of just watched it, and I was pretty blown away by just how... Well, basically just how awesome the movie is, you know. It really struck me. I hadn't really seen a Japanese movie like shot in such a such a stylized manner. It's definitely like one of the kind of inspirational films. Like, you know, I watched it then and I watch it now, and it still holds up really well. I particularly I love the soundtrack. It just sets the mood so well. And I guess when it came out, it was kind of like the peak of my Radiohead obsession. And there's a track from Radiohead, Last Flowers, which is in the film. But there's a lot of like Western style music. It's weird. It's very eclectic because they'll have Radiohead. They got a song from the XX, and they got this like really moody Japanese indie band called Boris. But then they'll have like an AKB48 song.
Did they? I don't remember.
Yeah. There's a scene where when Shuya and Naoki are talking about murdering
and it's playing in the background.
daughter, and it's just playing in the background, and it kind of and it's kind of cool. So it just adds this kind of like surrealism to it, like that contrast of music. And the director, he does that a lot in his films. In The World of Kanako, he uses, I think he uses another AKB song, but then he uses like there's like a Japanese hip hop artist I listen to called Daoko, and he uses one of her songs in that movie. So he really likes like modern Western songs and modern Japanese songs, and like putting them in his films. And it's what Danny Boyle did a lot with his movies.
There's a like a marriage between the music on the soundtrack and the visuals. I think Edgar Wright as well.
Yeah, Edgar Wright does it really, really well. Yeah. He's definitely underrated in the West. A lot of his movies don't get released here officially. You have to watch them at film festivals or order them online, because Confessions is such a dark subject matter. Like, it's basically kids murdering kids.
Every person in this movie is the worst person. Because it's based on a book, right? It's based on a book by Kaneo Minato, and I'm wondering, like, does she just hate kids? And it's not just the kids in the film. Like Moriguchi Sensei, who we mentioned, the protagonist, is, she's full of rage, and because of this, she's gone down this path of revenge against teenagers who, she justifies it by saying they won't be properly punished otherwise. But it's still like, it's a crazy thing to do. The kids, like Shuya, he's just a sociopath with the Oedipus complex. Naoki is just a wiener who kills someone kills a little girl to prove his worth. Naoki's mom is the worst. Shuya's mom is the worst.
Mizuki is just an edgy teenager. That's basically it.
And like, there's a teacher as well. He calls himself Werther, who is he's that quintessential, like, idealistic fool of a teacher who tries to be everybody's friend. Like, we've all had that kind of teacher in the past where he's like, Mr. Werther is my dad. I call me Werther, kind of thing. He's also the worst somehow.
It's funny. I was watching the behind the scenes, and it really doesn't paint the director in a very positive manner, because you watch him direct his actors. He rarely says anything positive to them. Sure, a lot of the time.
He's doing a like, Kubrick, right? A Hitchcock.
He's like, why can't you do this better? He's like, a lot of the directions, and even to the kids, he's like, you think your acting is good, but it's not. And then you'll see like the actors give their opinion, like, oh man, like I thought I was doing all right. I thought it was this way, but then the director talked to me and basically said I'm shit.
But yeah, because the actors are very young, aren't they? Then it's not the case of like a 25-year-old playing a high school kid.
They're 14 years old. They're actually 14.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like there is a classroom of characters, right?
And they're all horrible.
Yeah, they're all horrible. But that's the thing. The director has given each class member a character of their own, and when they do auditions, they did a few days where they just had the kids and the teacher like just interact with each other, and I found that pretty interesting, because with extras you usually just be like, hi, we need an extra, cool, all right, come in on this day and then we'll tell you what to do. But it was pretty cool to see how the classroom was basically along for most of the journey and with as much care as the leads or the actors that did the confessions. And you get like a pretty genuine reaction from a lot of the kids, and they want to be part of the film.
Yeah, and I think it really comes through in the finished product, because, I said that, that class of kids are just horrible, but you wouldn't have such a strong reaction to them if they were just, a bunch of randomly chosen extras. Like you have
for sure.
a strong reaction to them because they're all putting in a performance, even though it's in the background for most of it. They're portraying like these characters that are just the absolute worst. So Once Upon a Time in High School, this time a South Korean film from 2004, directed by Yoo Ha, which I'm not that familiar with his work, but the only thing that I've seen from him is A Dirty Carnival, which is a gangster film.
Yeah, he did a movie called A Frozen Flower, which is
I've seen that.
a period piece. I haven't seen it, but
It's
that's the kind of
Song Ji-ho in it, right? Of Running Man fame. So Once Upon a Time in High School is a high school drama set in a Korean high school in 1978. It's the story of Hyunsu, and he's trying to find his way as the new transfer student to just the worst school, probably in Korea. It's the kind of school where all the students, they all act like gangsters. The teachers are horrible. They're like slapping students and constantly telling them that they're no-hopers. The cane, it's the 70s, so the cane is being used. Kids are just, spitting in class. Because I wasn't sure if it was like a military school or not, because there's a staff of the school and he's always in military fatigues. So I thought it was like one of those military schools, but I think it's just an all-boys school.
Yeah.
And, upon entry to the school, like they cut your hair so that it's short. And yeah, everybody in it is just a thug. But aside from all that, like the setting aside, it's quite a nice drama. It's kind of about unrequited love, making friendships, and friends that kind of eventually turned into enemies.
It's definitely the more like conventionally structured. We see him interact with his friends. The character, he just loves Bruce Lee films.
It's more grounded in reality.
Yeah. He has a girl that he likes.
He gets friend zoned.
Yeah, he gets friend zoned.
Yeah. They go clubbing. They go clubbing in the 70s. That looks fun.
Yeah.
They got to wear wigs because their hair's short and they don't want to be discovered as high school kids. So they wear these really bad wigs. It's good. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
I think the full title is Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Once Upon a Time in High School.
So the lead actor is played by Antonio Banderas.
The full title is Once Upon a Time in High School, The Spirit of Jeet Kune Do, or something like that.
Yeah, Jeet Kune Do, yeah.
Because there is a lot of... They do reference like Bruce Lee films a lot, as you mentioned.
There is a number of like fight scenes and a number of burly brawls that are present in this movie, which was probably the big draw that made me want to watch it. I don't even remember. It was a long time ago when I first saw this film. It tells quite a nice story. It kind of shows a lot of the Korean past. Whether or not, you might want to talk to a real Korean to confirm them. It could be like, no,
Korean
it's not like
that lived during that decade,
during
right?
that time.
But yeah, it was like, I feel like it might be somewhat biographical because it does because the timelines match up as well. Like Bruce Lee would have been really big in Korea around that time, and at the end of the movie, it's kind of like Jackie Chan is kind of emerging as the new big thing in Kung Fu cinema, which seems to line up chronologically. But yeah, like the main character is just really into Bruce Lee, and he references like Jeet Kune Do philosophy a bit, specifically like, Jeet Kune Do teaches you not to look back, to just keep moving forward, and that's kind of how he experiences his tenure in that high school. Like he does get friend zoned, but he just keeps moving forward. Just trying to live his life really. He has a falling out with his friend who eventually ends up leaving the school and disappearing, but then he kind of he gets good at nunchucks and beats up the school bully. And gets kicked out of school, but it's all good because he goes to a public school, which seems a lot better, to be honest, than the school he was going to.
There seems to be a running theme of oppression in the film, and I guess that comes from like that Korean history. And I was doing a bit of research on like some Korean films and like why Korean films they're fairly distinct from other films from Asia. And there's this kind of philosophy that they call Han, which is basically like it's hard to explain, but it's kind of like this hidden inner rage that everyone has that is suppressed, but at some point it is just going to explode. And so for the whole movie, he's getting shat on by his teachers. He gets friend zoned. His best friend goes out with the girl that he likes, and his dad
he just lives with it.
Yeah. But then it goes to that climax in the film where he's just like, fuck all the schools in Korea, because it's just like, it's like to him everything is just a piece of shit at that point. And he has that like big fight scene with the school bully, it's pretty cool because it's just like he uses nunchucks in the least nunchucky kind of way. He does like a couple of moves and then he just like uses it as kind of like a mallet almost.
Well,
really.
I mean that's how it would devolve in real life. Yeah, I mean that's what I like about the action in this film and in Dirty Carnival. It's still stylized, but it's stylized in kind of like a flaily, uncoordinated way. So, like, obviously, probably in a real fight, they'd just end up on the ground and kind of just hugging each other. There'd be, like, guys kind of holding you back going, he's not worth it, bro, he's not worth it. But from the fights that I've seen, like, but in this film, they are doing a lot of, like, spin kicks and like a lot of punching, but it does look very blind. Like they're just kind of swinging wildly, but it looks really good.
It does. It doesn't look like it's choreographed. It would definitely be choreographed because if you can't improvise an action scene. It has to be choreographed to the T.
Or maybe if you're Jackie Chan.
Unless you're Jackie Chan or Jet Li, but even Bruce Lee, because he like improvised that kick to the dude in
but he actually kicked that dude probably.
But these days they will not allow you to just improvise. Like you can get into a fair bit of trouble if you just like, because the reason they have this like probably new filming standard is so people don't die on set, and that's fair enough. Like we don't want
people to die for our entertainment. Great,
not for real. Maybe some people,
but the action in this film, it's quite well done. In that it is entertaining to watch, but and it is clearly choreographed, but it doesn't feel like it is. It doesn't look like it is. And I like how in that last fight scene as well, like he uses a lot of the moves that he trained during his training montage on. Like he does a little diving nunchuck whack, and he does like a kick and nunchuck combination. So he did like kind of use the skills that he learned during his training montage, which was just a fun little detail. There are a lot of movies set in a school that we haven't mentioned. The list just goes on, and I assume it will continue to go on because it is, like we said, a really good setting for a story to be told.
Yeah, if you guys want us to talk about any more films that are set in school, like this is only touching the surface, really. And there are, like comedies, romance films, action thrillers, perhaps, set in school, animes. So if you want us to talk about this topic again, chuck us a comment.
Yeah, let us know, guys. You can contact us. You can send us an electronic mail. We're at
oh my god,
two Asian blokes, two Asian blokes at gmail.com. You can also join our Facebook group and contact us that way. Let us know what you think of the films that we've talked about, if you've seen them, and let us know what your favorite movie set in a school is.
Yeah. And if there is no email, we'll probably talk about this topic again anyway, because it's just interesting.
Because we want to.
Yeah, that's right. This is our podcast. This is our land.
All right, guys. But that's it for now. Stay safe out there. Have a good one. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time, everyone.
Bye.